viewers, thanks for joining me. My name is Martin Caballero. I'm the managing editor at BevNET.com. I'm here working from home, as probably many of you are as well, and we are continuing our coverage of the ongoing impact, looking at the impact of the coronavirus on the food and beverage industry. Today, we're going to be talking with Max Baumann, who's the founder and CEO of Basemakers, which is a merchandising and in-field sales company for food and beverage, working with clients such as Health Aid, Iconic Protein, RX Bar, and Capello's. Now, you're managing out of stocks and shelf improvements. Display execution is part of a normal day for Basemakers, but these are clearly far from normal days. So we're here to talk a little bit about what the food and beverage merchandising landscape looks like during a pandemic. So first of all, Max, thanks so much for joining us here. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, considering everything. It's been quite a wild time. And I think right now I've developed, generally I'm kind of an impulsive type of leader. Let's go for it. And now it's been a big practice of empathy and understanding. So it's definitely probably the biggest leadership lesson I've had in my life.
Now, Basemakers, performs essential functions that are part of the normal retail, operations. But this is clearly an extraordinary event. So, just on a macro level, how has your role, how has the company's role changed during this crisis?
Yeah. So during this crisis, the biggest thing that we've seen change is understanding where everyone's head's at. First of all, we have over 50 employees across 17 different states, and each state is unique and different. So what our first goal was to get all the different regions on individual calls, and for me to just ask questions and listen to their responses, see where their heads were at, and then understand, who eventually would be in and be like, I feel comfortable, the stores are good, and who would be like, I don't feel comfortable. Because our biggest mission out of this was to be as adaptable as possible. And then also one of the things that allowed us to do that was our pricing model to our all of our brand partners is on a per store stop. So no one gets charged unless the store is hit, which allows that flexibility. So we went around to these different regions and we ended up deciding to pause. And this was the first company memo went out March 16th. That's right after the NBA shutdown. And then it just continued to get worse and worse. And then at that point, we decided to temporarily pause California, Washington State, and New York. And then out of that, we basically gave all of our team members the option of, did they want to go out and continue to perform services? Did they feel safe? How could we help protect them more? And we took all that and created an action plan.
And we talked a little bit before the call. It's the way that certain things have been designated as essential services, what people can and can't do. You guys are actually covered under that. So you guys are having access to retailers that maybe some other businesses are not.
Absolutely. And, we're getting the direct memos from Whole Foods headquarters on what they're doing to prevent this. And, actually now we're walking in through the receiving entrance where we have people that are getting their temperature checked before they walk in. So we are a partner of a lot of these retailers in that way. And we're very grateful. A lot of us are very grateful that we still have jobs and we're able to work during this while exercising extreme caution, obviously, and following the CDC guidelines.
And sort of just keeping on with how your role has changed, what are you hearing from retailers that you're working with? What are their needs right now? And how are you guys working to sort of be a best partner for them?
The number one thing that I'm hearing from retailers, and I went in the field a little bit as this was escalating and just went to 3 different types of stores, conventional, natural, specialty, and chatted with the managers, chatted with my team members, and got a real world interaction of what their needs were. The first thing that I got was that if consumers would really follow the guidelines, it would be a lot easier for everyone. And that's where, I was having calls with our NorCal team. I was having calls with different teams that were expressing that they felt like they were in a sardine can. And it's, obviously during a virus pandemic, you don't want to have that feeling. But the thing I've been very impressed about was these retailers had such swift action in implementing these different programs. Like now, I'm sure that you've seen, if you go to a grocery store, there's a line out the door and they're only allowing a certain amount of people in. That was an amazing move that a lot of retailers have implemented. And, now with Whole Foods doing the temperature checks, if you're above 100.4 degrees, you're asked not to come in. And, all these different things are going to allow the people that are working in the grocery stores to feel more safe. And then also our team members who are still active to feel more safe. So I'm really grateful for the leadership in those organizations taking the swift action. The second thing that I've been seeing from a brand, what brands would be interested in, is there's actually a system that is in every single grocery store where you can scan an item. And a lot of these grocery stores have automatic orders when the item zeroes out. So what they're doing right now is they're focusing on essential products, the staple marks that are the highest velocity. Then they're saying, what are their normal high velocity items? There are brands like Health Aid, RX Bar, some of the bigger ones that are really bumping through. And then they're looking at, okay, what's zeroed out? So there's a big gap in between what's zeroed out and then the other products that are in store. So what our team's been able to do is actually use and leverage our network of relationships to provide value for them on restocking the staple marks, even a lot of the products that we don't get paid for, but we believe in one of our values is it being of service to others. So we're going ahead and doing that, being like, how can we be the most helpful for you during our store visit? And then we're adding value to a lot of our brand partners on after that. So what we've been seeing is with this zeroed out system, and I think this is very, very important. Anyone that's listening to this, that's a brand, should really, really pay attention to this. If someone, let's say, misplaces an item in the store and you are still above 3 units, but you're zeroed out on the shelf, during this time, your product might not get reordered. And we've seen this across multiple brands where we were able to find these holes in the shelf, go on the scan gun, and it still shows there's a few units left. So we don't know if it's theft. We don't know if it's just misplaced items in the back room. But this allows, basically, could be hundreds of dollars worth of sales for this brand that aren't occurring during one of the times where grocery stores are at their highest peak. So very important to have in-store representation where you can.
And in terms of out of stocks, that is something that you guys deal with all the time as well. But, in this particular time, we're clearly seeing that be a bigger issue. I think there's some worry about sort of, as you mentioned, getting restocked and what things are sort of going to be get the premier shelf placement. So how are you guys sort of dealing with that during this time? And how should brands be worried that out of stocks may have long-term consequences based on what they're seeing now?
Absolutely. I mean, brands should absolutely be concerned that out of stocks will have long-term consequences. From what I've heard from different retailers and through anecdotal feedback is that retailers are going to take COVID into account when they're doing their category reviews. And if a brand was absolutely, moving like hotcakes before, and then they had, a big dip and got close, because what they do is they average out all the numbers on a per SKU, per store, per unit volume, and they measure it against the other category players. And then eventually they're going to choose, okay, these are the brands that make it to the next cut. And then here are the new brands that come in. So I know during this time, they're pushing review dates back. They're pushing a lot of these different things back. But the reset dates, I know they're going forward with that they've already had in place for the most part.
Have you had to rearrange, certain activations or things that you were working on, and what might that look like?
Adjusting our schedule has been key. I mean, first in terms of safety. So one of the things that we've done from our schedule standpoint is identify the times and places where it is the lowest traffic for consumers, so our people can go in and be of service, maintain social distance, and still get the job done. And then in terms of display execution activity that we had going pre-crisis into the crisis, we've had to put pause on some, quite frankly, some great displays that our teams landed, but for the betterment of the consumers during that time.
So in terms of displays, Max, what is even possible to do right now? What are you guys sort of looking at in terms of, what's viable?
That's a great question. What we've seen in terms of displays is that there's actually a very unique type of display that we call a backstock display, where there's product in the back and there's a lot of holes. There's so many holes right now. If you walk into a grocery store, I'm sure you've probably seen it yourself. So we're able to get additional cooler placement. We're able to get these, especially immune forward products. Grocery store managers have been really up on right now because the velocity is there, and it's also a benefit to society if it's truly an immune boosting product. So those are the types of products within our portfolio that are performing really well and that we've been able to get off shelf displays for.
And reporting is a big part of your business, gathering data on sales and consumers. What is sort of the most important thing that you guys are sort of extrapolating from data right now, or what should brands be looking at and sort of sorting out consumer patterns right now?
The biggest thing is out of stocks. And what out of stocks will tell you is during this time, which products are moving really well. So if you can compare your data from the past with data right now, I'm seeing products that contain ginger across the board moving very, very well. Ginger is an immune boosting product. I'm seeing, even cayenne moving well. And it's funny because you can go across these stores and see the same SKUs out of stock from these different brands. So one of the things that we do on our advanced reporting, which is for certain clients that are of a certain caliber and above that are paying us a certain amount above, they get access to this advanced reporting where they can see the out of stocks month by month.
This pandemic, when did you start to sort of factor this into your decision making in terms of seeing it coming, and how much are you sort of extending that runway to, is this going to affect how you're planning for the fall, for even next year?
That's a great question. What we've seen so far with the pandemic is a quick, immediate action plan that we had to roll out, especially for our furloughed team members that either they have a underlying health condition, they might have heart or lung condition, and we want to protect the most vulnerable. And that's always been our motto. So what we did is we had an immediate action plan, which we called Project ADP and S, which is really adapt and support our 4 key areas across the board. So it was team safety was number 1. Team support was number 2. Brand partners were number 3, and company financials were number 4. So we actually created a very flexible and adaptable model saying at this rate, at this many team members, here are the back office positions we would have to furlough temporarily and then come out of the gates hot. Where I see this long term is actually, quite frankly, it's the most challenging situation because I've never seen so much brand demand pop up out of nowhere. I mean, we're getting unsolicited emails coming in left and right from very well-known brands saying, hey, we need support. We're doing a channel shifting strategy. Food service was 40% of our business. And now we want to, with food service out, we want to reallocate our budget towards how we can sell more at grocery. And everyone knows who's been in the business a while, the number one way to sell well outside of product market fit is visibility at the point of purchase. So that's what we specialize in. And that's why we've had this demand. But then on the other side, the yin kind of and yang to this that we're trying to balance out is team safety. If someone doesn't want to work, we do not force them. We give that choices between them and their family. And also there's certain areas as a company that we just paused because we felt that they were too dangerous at this period.
And you mentioned at the top of the call, this has been sort of a big test of leadership and unprecedented challenges. For you as a founder and CEO, what has been maybe the biggest challenge, or what have you had yourself adapt to for this situation?
I think the biggest challenge has been emotional intelligence. So understanding how to control my own emotions, how to understand to read other emotions of each team member, and then understand how my behavior is going to affect the team. So in times of crisis, there's so much information so quickly that being able to maintain a very steady, stable base and have that stability for the team as a leader is key. And that's will allow you to make better decision making and also adapting the communication. We're now hyper communicative. If anything comes out, we let our team know right away. And I think that's building a lot of trust between our team members and us. And we believe that when this gets through, we're going to be rehiring the team members, all the team members that are furloughed. And we're actually going to be a stronger business because of it. Because right now, what I've noticed is habits are being built. More people are now cooking at home. So more people are creating these recipes. They're realizing it's actually less expensive to cook at home. So while they're at the grocery store, instead of spending the money that they would spend on restaurants, on movie tickets, they're reallocating their budget towards some of these brands that also are innovative and maybe even smaller. Because as long as they're seen in store, the impulse aisle, if they can see this new bag that might just appeal to them. That would be fun. Maybe it's a high-end chocolate like Hue, and then they grab it, they put it in their cart, and they bring it home to their family, say, hey, look at this chocolate I just got. And that's, a new part of the entertainment of brand discovery that I've seen.
It's certainly interesting. I think that's a great point, and we've seen a lot of trial being driven because people obviously are sort of forced to change their habits somewhat. But do you see this as having a tail effect? Are we seeing consumers trying new things because of the situation, or are we seeing a real shift in consumer behavior that is going to inform how you guys do business in the future?
So the big shift that I'm seeing is grocery store traffic. Right now we're going like this, and then when this thing passes, we're still going to level off, but it'll be higher than it was before. It's similar to when we land, and we've seen this repeatedly with different Whole Foods portal data. When you land big displays in a store and you get a lot of trial, the sales after the display might not be as high, but you're still having a lift across that because of the trial that you occurred. So now when you have higher than normal grocery store traffic and you have trial of these brands, they're going to be seeing tail lifts as long as they have availability and visibility within those stores.
So over the past couple of weeks, there's been a huge surge in grocery store sales. How are you seeing the situation on the ground sort of adjust after that initial wave?
So what initially happened was you had a bottleneck situation. You didn't have enough trucks, from KeHE, from UNFI, from these other drop shippers, and including the DSD partners as well. So what happened was they actually limited items per store and first focused on only the staple marks, and then the essential items, and then the high volume items. So it hurt a lot of the small brands. But what we've seen evolve over time is new trucks being allocated towards grocery and grocery distribution. So what that's allowed our team to do is now fill these gaps for all these smaller brands. And now we've seen everything starting to return back to normal. I think within the next 2 weeks, everything should be ordering as normal. But there's going to be a lot more. They're eliminating the truck to shelf, and they're starting to have back stock again, which is because the new sales allow for back stock and extra inventory, which is awesome to see for brands.
And finally, Max, I'm sure there's a lot of brands watching right now, dealing with this situation and all the unexpected challenges that come with it. What is the number one thing that they should be talking about with their in-store and merchandising reps during this time? What's the best thing to focus on?
The best thing is to really be of service. Is first, don't walk in and try and just focus on what you can do for your brand. Focus on what you can do for the community and for others. So if a grocery store manager says, hey, I have this extra, I'm stocking stuff, I'm a little busy right now. Say, hey, can I offer your services and your support? Can I stock that with you? What can I do to make your life easier? Because what I'm hearing across the board are people are working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and still taking care of their family. And yeah, they have the hazard pay and they have the all the overtime hours, but still it's very stressful for them and they're getting overworked. So if you can take a load off by helping them, you throw loads of some pasta sauce and some pasta and paper towels and really be of service, of including the physical labor, they're going to remember that. And you can build relationship equity that's going to last far beyond just this time of crisis.
Well, Max, that's great advice. I really appreciate your time jumping on here and talking with us here at BevNet and Nosh. Best of luck and stay safe out there. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Thanks, Marty.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe and ring that bell.